Oops, let's pause. Oh, okay. Bien, bien. Y muy buenos días. Espero que ustedes estén bien. I hope you guys are all well. Sí, todo bien, va bien.
Sí.
Más o
Jack,
menos.
Sí.
Jack tiene muchas personas con él.
Ah, oh, sí. Son nietos tuyos. Son nietos tuyos en la fonda.
Sí, 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 sí.
Ah,
La bandera de Argentina.
la bandera de Argentina, sí, del
Sí,
azul
sí, sí,
celeste.
sí.
Ah,
La niña el lado es mi nieta.
oh, es tu nieta.
Con el flor amarillo.
Oh, con la flor amarilla en la
Sí, sí, sí,
oreja. Ah, sí, sí, sí,
sí, sí,
sí.
sí, sí.
Ah, qué preciosa, qué preciosa. Ella
Sí.
tiene clases de español, me imagino, ¿no?
Sí, en su escuela, ellos estudiando en español por la cultura de Argentina.
Muy bien.
Uh,
Fantástico.
canción favorita es Chochi, 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 un avión,
Ah, ok,
avión pequeño,
ok. Sí,
Cochi,
sí.
Cochi, Chochi.
Qué preciosa, ay, qué, me encanta, me encanta. Muy bien. Bueno, a ver, me gusta ver las fotos. I really like seeing pictures of all these. Okay, voy a mostrarles, I'm going to show you guys, voy a mostrarles no, hay un archivo nuevo. El único archivo que necesitan, the only really real thing you need, because I've got a new one we're going to be pulling up and sending to you. Pero, para practicar this one, sí, el archivo con práctica de iba, was going to, es lo que ustedes necesitan, es el archivo que necesitan en un minuto, ¿bien? Hoy vamos a practicar con una estructura, la estructura de was going to, y también vamos a practicar con los verbos difíciles, los verbos que son difíciles de traducir, cuando hay dos verbos similares, cuando hay dos verbos, pero solamente una palabra en inglés, y o sea, son verbos que nos causan confusión de vez en cuando. Yeah, the verbs that are a little bit confusing. We're going to go through some of these, see what kind of questions you have, and do some walkthrough practice with that. Okay, ¿está bien? A ver. Bueno. Vamos a ver. Momentito. Y. Bien. Eso es. If we get a little time, we'll see if you have any questions on the little comparing cities video you had. Y eso es. That's it. Okay. I do
How long
want
does this session go?
Oh, sí, sí,
When's the
sí.
last
Dime.
day of this session?
Perdón?
When is the last day of this session?
Oh. Es una fecha en agosto.
Because I haven't heard.
Es el 23 de agosto.
Oh, okay.
El 23 de agosto. Y sí, el
Gracias.
23. My guess, my memory, if memory serves me correctly, is generally there's a 2-week gap between end of summer and beginning of fall. I think because of the Labor Day holiday and them kind of figuring that people aren't there right away. So I don't know if it'll be the first week of September for the first classes or the first week or the second week of September. I haven't gotten notice yet on when fall picks up. You'll have
Okay.
minimum 1 week off between summer and fall, possibly 2 weeks. I'm not quite sure how they're going to set that up yet. You guys may hear before I hear, because a lot of you get emails on the registration schedule even before I get it. Ok, vale. Vamos a practicar primero con perdón, con iba a y un infinitivo. This is one of those things that actually winds up being very, very useful. And it is an easy thing to learn. Es fácil de aprender, es fácil de practicar. You know, you learn very early on in Spanish, ir is one of those early verbs. It's an irregular verb, but you know, voy, vas, va, vamos, van. And we can use it for talking about going to places. We also use it about talking about with the idea of going to do an activity. And it's the same structure really in English, except you literally need that little word to, in the middle of the two verbs. So just like you learned to use ir en presente, a infinitivo. Voy a bañarme. I'm going to take a bath. Voy a lavarme las manos. Voy a ver un programa en la tele. Vamos a escuchar esta canción. Okay. Just as you learn to do that using the present tense of ir to talk about future activity. And by the way, this is much more common in spoken Spanish than using the formal future tense. You know, like I will go to the grocery store. In conversation is not as common as I'm going to go to the grocery store. A future tense does exist, but ir a infinitive is far, far, far more common to talk about what's going to happen pretty soon. Okay, so if we take that a step backward into the past, we're going to use the same structure, but to say somebody was going to do something, we need to use ir in a past tense. The only little trick you need to remember is that for the past of this same structure, ir a infinitivo, you need to put ir into imperfecto. It always goes into imperfecto. Why it is that way and not pretérito is like not an issue. Don't worry about it. You will always hear it. You will always hear it as the imperfecto a and the infinitivo. So, iba, here's it's one of the three that are irregular for imperfecto. Iba, ibas, la forma de tú, iba igual. Yo, él, ella, usted usan iba. Íbamos para nosotros, iban para ellos, ellas, ustedes. It will always be imperfecto. You never have to think, do I do pretérito or do I do imperfecto? You don't even have to think about it. Just learn that iba pattern. and you're good to go. Okay, vale. Por ejemplo, yo iba a lavar la ropa, pero la lavadora no funcionó. I was going to wash clothes, but the washer didn't work. Yeah, washing machine didn't work. Yeah. Bien. Y vamos a traducir estas ideas. Vamos a usar iba a infinitivo aquí. He was going to leave today, but they canceled his flight. ¿Cómo se dice he was going to leave?
Él iba a salir.
Sí. Bien. Tengo que usar mi teclado para español. Él iba a salir o quizás irse.
Sí.
No importa. Es la misma idea. Iba a salir, iba a irse. Hoy. And now, for this next half, does they canceled his flight sound more like an event kind of thing or a description kind of thing?
An event.
An
It
event
happened.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
It happened.
Okay. Cancelar es to cancel. Es regular. Entonces, como se dice, they canceled his flight.
Pero cancelaron su viejo
Sí, su vuelo.
vuelo.
Pero cancelaron su vuelo. Y aquí cancelaron es mejor en pretérito, pero iba a salir, iba a irse, no importa, ya. Okay.
Marilyn, I had a question.
Sí, dime.
In your example, like yo iba a lavar, there isn't an in there.
Oh, there
So-
isn't. Oh,
No,
perdón.
so I thought maybe you didn't use it
No.
with that form.
Perdón.
Okay.
La culpa
Okay.
es mía. My fault. I probably cut and paste something in and failed to put that in there.
Aha.
Tienes razón. Muchísimas gracias. Sí. Iba a lavar. I said it, but I didn't type it in. Okay. Vale. Bueno. Iba
And I
a.
have una pregunta.
Sí.
Just my English thinking, when you say they canceled his flight, I was gonna say, but his flight was canceled. Do they ever say that?
Es buena pregunta. His flight was canceled. Okay. That doesn't name who did the canceling, does it?
No.
His flight was canceled is really passive voice. Passive voice is very seldom used in Spanish.
Don't go there then.
I
I'll just try to.
will show you. I will show you a little thing you may hear because actually it is kind of helpful. It is very okay. So if we were to use the true passive voice in Spanish, it would be su vuelo fue cancelado. But people don't say that conversationally very much. The true passive voice in Spanish is not used much. And when it is used, it'll be in something like, it'll be writing, it'll be literature, newspapers, something pretty formal.
Okay.
But there is kind of a workaround that is sort of a false, not true passive voice that can be used, and it would sound like this. It would sound like this. Pero se canceló su vuelo. And this is one of the oddball uses of se.
Meaning one
It is-
canceled.
Right. Se canceló su vuelo. His flight was canceled. Se is sometimes used to make kind of a faux but acceptable like what would be, it's really the same thing you hear with like, se habla español, Spanish is spoken. Okay. And it's just taking that and putting it into the past. So,
Okay.
but this idea of they did it, meaning like some sort of faceless they, right? You don't know who behind the counter canceled the flight. Yeah, it's always a faceless they who did it. Using a they conjugation, cancelaron, is pretty
It's better.
common.
Okay.
Well, it's common. It's common.
Sure. Trust me.
But yes, true passive voice, which does exist, you don't want to really get into it heavy duty for speaking. English leans on it constantly, and
Yeah.
Spanish very seldom does. And as a matter of fact, for English native speakers that are trying to train people in professional writing to flee the use of, get rid of it, toss it out, the use of passive voice in a lot of writing, because it makes for extra words and more reading and more cumbersome. And yeah.
Okay.
So even in our language, sometimes they try to soft pedal it because we use it so darn much. Okay. I was going to work on my project. And we may or may not use our yo. Okay. I was going to.
Iba a
But if
trabajar.
you
Iba a trabajar
En mi proyecto.
en mi proyecto. But, pero,
No
Oh.
hay tiempo suficiente.
suficiente.
no había tiempo
Oh.
suficiente.
No,
No había tiempo suficiente. Y muy común decir sí, tiempo suficiente, sufficient, meaning you're lacking something there, yeah? There is a word enough, bastante, but tiempo suficiente es mejor. This is better for saying enough time, because you haven't got sufficient time. You're lacking the time, right? Y aquí, imperfecto, there wasn't time. Sí, es descripción, no es evento. It's not an event to say there wasn't time. So with haber, it'll generally be había, imperfecto. Pero lo importante, the important thing, lo importante es usar iba a trabajar. Iba a trabajar. Bien, bien. I was going to exercise. But it was too blankety blank hot. Okay.
Sin yo es posible él o ella o usted. See? In other words, don't you have to use I so that it's not confused with him or her or you?
Aquí el pronombre yo, para empezar. Sí, yo.
Yes.
¿Y qué? I was going to.
Yes.
Iba a hacer ejercicio.
Iba a hacer ejercicio. Pero hacía, porque es descripción, hacía muchísimo calor. Hacía muchísimo calor, hacía demasiado, hay una palabra demasiado, too much.
Caliente.
Sí. Se puede decir bastante calor. Bastante calor es como quite hot, rather hot. Mucho calor, muchísimo calor. Sí, bien. A ver. Pero aquí imperfecto para describir el clima, describir el tiempo. Hacía. Pero iba a hacer ejercicio. And when somebody says this at a normal rate, that iba a hacer, you're not going to hear a pause between those words. Iba a hacer. Iba a hacer. So notice what happens here with iba a hacer. Fíjense, por favor, fíjense, esto sí es importante. Cuando hablamos, debemos conectar estas palabras. That that iba ends up with should drag into, and you're really not going to notice there are three words there. Iba a ser, iba a ser. Cuando un hablante nativo, un hispanohablante, dice esta frase, es como escuchar, yo iba a ser. They may drag that out a little bit, but all those ahs are all going to drag into one another, because that is why a lot of times that much of the Spanish sounds rather quick, because people slide all those vowel sounds when they're the same vowel sound ending a letter and going into the next word, or ending a word and going into the next word. People tend to just connect them and slide from one vowel into the other. Especially when
That's how I would describe that entire video of Barcelona versus Madrid.
yeah, sí. Ok, bien. Bueno, siguiente. Cuatro. We were going to call her, but we forgot.
Íbamos
Íbamos
a
Could it start with
llamarla,
la?
íbamos a llamarla. O se puede decir la íbamos a
sí.
llamar. Es lo mismo, ¿sí? La posición del pronombre la no importa. La íbamos a llamar o íbamos a llamarla son iguales, ¿ok? La íbamos a llamar a pero.
Pero nunca
No.
llegaron en la oficina.
Oh, no, es we forgot.
Oh, forgot. Oh, wrong one.
Pero olvidemos.
Olvidamos, ok.
Nos
Olvidamos. Oh, nos olvidamos, ok. Hay un truco aquí. There's a little trick here that I'm going to teach you. We forgot. If you said this in English, we were going to call her, but we forgot. Do you mean you purposely put it right out of your mind, or do you mean, oops?
Oops.
What you really mean is oops, isn't it? There's a special structure for oops kinds of sentences. And oops
Propio.
sentences happen, por ejemplo, there are special little structures, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. We'll, ahí olvidamos, perdón. Bien. We'll get into it a different day, not today, but just so that you see how this sounds. This is one of those phrases where if you just learn how these three words hang together, because it's going to become three words, this is much more natural. Nos olvidamos. Why? No puedo deletrear. I cannot spell. Guy, no puedo I cannot spell today. Okay. Mejor. Nos olvidamos makes it sound like you did it on purpose in Spanish. And in Spanish, there's certain activities we want to convey the idea of it was an oops. Things like, oh, it slipped my mind. Things like, oh, I left it at home. Shoot. Things like, oh man, my car broke down. It broke down on me. It broke on me. Things like, I ran out of milk. I got nothing to put in my coffee. I ran out of milk.
Seems like we need a Spanish equivalent to oh darn, I forgot.
Exacto. And here's what it's going to become. We're going to keep the nos because we want to convey the idea of it went and did this to me, well, in this case, to us. But we're going to put this troublesome little word here again. This is yet another use of se. Íbamos a llamarla, pero se nos olvidó. Se nos olvidó. It went and forgot itself on us. But what is going to be helpful for you is to learn this as a 3-word connected phrase. Se nos olvidó. And the way we say I forgot is we just change the nos into
Me
me.
nos olvidó.
Se me olvidó. I forgot. It's
me.
this. I forgot. Se me olvidó. This is a special structure. I did not expect you to know it, but it's a good thing to know. It's always 3 words. It always starts with se, no matter who we're talking about. This is the oops, darn, shoot, doggone it, say. And it introduces something that is completely unintentional on your part. Okay, pero aquí íbamos a llamarla, la íbamos a llamar, son iguales aquí. And someday we'll come back to this, se nos olvidó. Se me olvidó, I forgot. Se le olvidó, he forgot. Se les olvidó, they forgot. It slipped their mind, yeah. Okay. They were going to work with us, but they never arrived at the office. Ellos
Iban a trabajar
iban a trabajar
con
with us.
nosotros,
Con nosotros, sí, exacto,
pero nunca
pero nunca
llegaron
llegaron
a la oficina.
a la oficina. A la oficina, al despacho, a la oficina, bien, sí, al consultorio, if it's a doctor's kind of office, yeah. Iban a trabajar con nosotros, pero nunca llegaron a la oficina. Y aquí llegaron mejor en pretérito. Llegaron better en pretérito, ¿por qué? Why?
It was like a one-shot event. They didn't come.
Yeah, it's an event-oriented thing. They never arrived. It doesn't really work as a description. That works as this thing, yeah, happened or didn't happen in this case, right? Vale, bueno, y por fin.
A quick question on that one.
Sí, sí.
I guess I missed the word never, which of course nunca would work there. But so I just kind of in my mind it was but they didn't arrive. So would it be simply pero no llegaron a la oficina?
A la oficina, if you don't put the nunca in, that's just fine. Somebody still gets the same idea. Yeah. As long as you make it a negative. No llegaron a la oficina. Sí. Yeah. No llegaron a la oficina. Sí. If you leave that little word nunca out, it's not really a big, it's an NBD and no big deal, right? Somebody still definitely gets the right idea from that idea. No llegaron nunca or nunca llegaron, because that nunca can be a double negative or a single negative. If we flip the nunca in front of the verb, you only need the one negative word. Okay, vale. My wife is going to meet me here.
Mi esposa
Mi esposa.
Iba.
Iba a encontrar.
Iba a
encontrarme.
encontrarse conmigo. Yeah, there are different ways there are different ways of saying meet, aren't there? Yeah.
Encontrarme.
It could be encontrarse
Encontrarme.
conmigo. It could be iba a juntarse conmigo. It could be reunirse conmigo. Different ways to say meet up with.
Can you just use me near the beginning there rather than conmigo? Mi
Oh.
mi esposa me iba a encontrar aquí.
Sí, se puede, sí, 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 sí. You could flip that into a me, sí. Here. Y here, aquí. Some places like to use acá. That's a regional thing. No importa mucho, doesn't matter much. The really important thing is this iba a, iba a, iba a. Okay. Es fácil de practicar, ¿no? It's an easy thing to practice, yeah? The iba a was going to. And the big...
Una observación.
Sí, sí.
Cuando una frase pienso con iba a sugiere una frustración término.
Una
El término. If it starts that way, doesn't it suggest a frustration at the end? You're not going to get what you wanted.
Oh,
Almost
no
every sentence
necesariamente.
use but.
Oh, sí. Yeah. Pero aquí no. No indica frustración necesariamente. No. Pero sí, aquí tengo muchísimas frases con pero. No es necesariamente.
Sometimes pero is a good outcome. It was a great point you just made. I was thinking all these are, darn, something went wrong. But then I started trying to just dream up something. It was like, I was going to be late, but I got an earlier flight.
Eso, sí,
Oh, good,
sí.
good.
Exacto. Bien.
Marilyn?
Sí.
Question?
Sí.
For but, is sino used much for but? Is that
there is a word but that is translated as
some
sino.
of the videos.
Sí. Yes. Sino es más como but rather. And it is used in specific situations. Okay. Por ejemplo, no pagamos con pesos, sino dólares. When we're kind of trading something out with that but, when it means but rather, we'll do something quick on that next week because it's a short lesson and easy to learn. Yeah. Sino is used in different kinds of situations. And we'll talk about that another time, because if I fit it in now, I won't get my other stuff done. So, pero, buena pregunta. And we'll build something in next week to work that. Me gusta mucho. I like that quite a lot. Puede ser importante a veces. It can be important sometimes. Okay. Adelante. Vamos a examinar, hablar, practicar con una variedad de verbos. Muchas veces hay solamente una palabra en inglés, pero en español es posible usar 2 o 3 verbos. Cuando tenemos solamente un verbo en inglés, pero es posible que haya 2 o 3 verbos, ¿sí? Y este video, ¿sí? This video here went through a lot of different verbs. We're not going to focus very much on the apply. I'm only going to say one thing about apply. Aplicar is used much more when you actually apply a substance to something else, like you're applying glue to paper, you're applying varnish to wood, you're applying paint to your walls. Yeah, that's aplicar, usually. Sometimes you hear it for applying, as in, you know, you put in a form of some kind, but solicitar is generally the verb that I hear used a little bit more with solicitar. Solicitar looks like to solicit, and it kind of can mean that, you know, like soliciting business you're asking for. Solicitar is used when you put in an application for something, and you know, any kind of form that you have to fill out and turn in. That's solicitar. So we're not going to look at that tier, but we are going to take a look at a number of these tiers, and how many we get through kind of depends on how many questions you've got. And we're going to do some translation kind of things with this. So, bueno, sí, vamos al grano. Let's go cut to the chase here. The point here is that whereas we generally have this one word in English, try, you might hear 3 different things in Spanish. 2 of those are synonyms. One is used in a different context than the other. Okay. Support very much depends on what you mean by support. Do you mean something is actually holding up weight of something else? Do you mean that somebody is giving, is backing somebody up? Is in your corner fighting for you? Is rooting for you? That kind of support. Does it mean you are working to bring home the bacon to your family so that your kids can have a good life? Is it that kind of support? It can go into different verbs in Spanish. So the context is going to really put us off into one branch of a kind of word or a different branch with a different word. Move is going to definitely use a couple of different kinds of verbs. Actually, we could even split this off into mudarse, moverse, or just mover sometimes. Throw, this one is a real can of worms. We may even not get through all of this, because this one word here within the throw group of echar, tirar, lanzar, echar is by far the word that can morph into a whole bunch of different things. And we may not get to everything with echar today, because echar almost deserves a class like all by itself for most of the class. Echar is used in lots of different situations. And then this bottom one, which is kind of an easy one to figure out, discuss. Discutir kind of looks like a cognate, doesn't it? Yeah. Discutir, sí, es discuss. But it is used in a different kind of meaning. There's a nuance, a subtle turn with discutir versus platicar, which can also mean to discuss. So we're going to get into the fine points of all of those. And you will actually get this file in the after class email. Bien, vamos a ver. Verbos confusos. Which are exactly the same. Sometimes we can use some, you know, a verb. Spanish might have 2 different verbs and they're exactly interchangeable, and sometimes not. So when are they the same, interchangeable? When are they not? Yeah. Vamos a ver. These 2 verbs, we're going to start off with this trio. Hay 3 verbos. Aquí hay 3 verbos. En inglés usamos try. Try this. Try this food. Try this drink. Oh, try on this shirt to see if it fits. Yeah. Try on these shoes because Yeah, I don't like to order shoes on the internet. I have to try them on. Yeah. Oh, he's trying to quit smoking and he's having a really hard time. Try is going to go off into two different camps, but it depends on the context. Anytime we're talking about taste, anything with food or drink or clothing, it's probar. Boom. And I think of it as probing. What are the little animals? Son insectos. Como las mariposas. Yeah, I remember being in science class, like in 5th grade, and they tell you how there's a proboscis. A proboscis. It's a little probing thing like a tongue that your little, mariposa butterfly has, and it uses it to get, pollen and nectar out of flowers. Think of the little proboscis for probar. It's tasting something. That little butterfly is tasting all the nectar. So that's when we use probar for anything that goes in your mouth or you try on your body because you don't know if it's going to fit. That's probar. Okay. But if you mean it in the idea of an attempt, then we can use either of these two verbs and they are completely interchangeable. It doesn't matter which one you use. The only difficulty is with this verb tratar, you've got to make sure you don't forget about this little preposition. Tratar is one of those troublesome words that needs a preposition, like iba a trabajar, I was going to work. Iba a, it needs a. Tratar needs this thing, de. It just does. It doesn't translate to anything. It just needs to be there. Intentar doesn't need anything in between itself and the second verb. So if we're attempting to do something, I'm trying to finish an article, I'm trying to climb a trail, I'm trying to wash the windows, but it's too darn hot. Anything like that, an attempt. Vale, bueno, entonces, I always try on clothes before I buy them. Es probar, intentar, tratar de. ¿Cuál de los tres?
Probar.
Probar.
Probar. Entonces, and probar has that little UE funny thing, presente, present, right? So we need an pruebo. I try on. I always try on. Let's plug in our always word. ¿Cómo se dice siempre? Oh,
Yeah.
¿cómo se dice siempre? I already gave it to you. Siempre. Siempre. I always try. Yeah, see. I always try on clothes.
Antes de
Probar, pruebo las ropa.
La
Las
ropa.
La ropa.
Y
Ayer comprarlo.
antes de comprarla. Exacto.
I was
Antes
getting
de.
close.
O es posible decir antes de comprar. Some people might just leave off the la and say antes de probar. Eso sí es posible. Bien. Vale. Did I lose people? Did I lose folks here? A ver, no, I still have you back. I'm sorry. My sound was sounding like it was cutting out. That's all I need is an internet problem too. Okay. A ver. You might say it without the la, might say it with the la. Siempre prueba la ropa antes de comprarla. Y fíjense, notice, I don't need this word. Yeah. Word for word does not happen here. Yeah. Siempre prueba la ropa. Siempre pruebo. Y aquí es posible me pruebo because I'm putting it on my body. Un poquito mejor reflexivo. A little bit better here reflexive because, yeah, we're putting it on our body. Okay. Pero
singular, la ropa es correcto?
Siempre es singular.
Es,
Sí.
no las ropas.
Nadie dice, no se dice ropas. No.
Okay.
Nadie dice ropas. Nunca. ¿Sí? Siempre es la ropa. La ropa, un montón, 10 camisas, 2 pares de zapatos, pantalones, ropa. Ropa, sí. Siempre. Vale. Bueno. Ok. ¿Quieres? Si tienes una pregunta para un amigo, if you have a question like this for your friend, do you try new foods when you travel?
Pruebas nuevo.
¿Puedes?
¿Pruebas?
Nuevas comidas nuevas cuando viajas.
Cuando
Comidas.
viajas. Sí, pruebas nueva comida o sí, nuevas comidas. Aquí también quizás un poquito mejor en singular. En inglés decimos new foods, pero nueva comida es más común. Nueva comida cuando viajas, Sí, exacto. Ok. Aquí. I'm trying to listen to the news. No es comida. No se trata de ropa. Entonces, los dos, these two, and either one will be okay here. I'm trying to listen to the news.
¿Estoy en tanto?
Sí, es posible.
¿Escuchar?
Es mejor usar simplemente presente. Intento
Intento escuchar.
escuchar las noticias.
Noticias.
Intento escuchar las noticias, pero igual decir trato
De
de escuchar las noticias. Trato de trato de escuchar. Bien. Y de. Aquí la palabra muy pequeña de sí es importante. Bien. Intento escuchar las noticias. Trato de escuchar las noticias. Son iguales. Perfecto. Bien. We're trying to exercise every day.
Intentamos
Vamos a hacer
Hacer ejercicio
ejercicio todos los
ejercicio
días.
cada día.
cada
Todos los días.
día, todos los días. Bien. Diariamente. Bien. You can use whatever thing says every little day. Diariamente. Está bien. Cada día. Bien. Todos los días. Bien. Vale. All
Alvin?
those get the idea across. Sí, bien.
Question, instead of hacer ejercicio, can you just use ejercer to exercise?
Depende. It kind of depends. Momentito. Vamos a ver. I'm going to show you what they do here. Uy, ¿dónde está el verbo? El verbo. Ejercitarse, ejercer. Use call upon. No es correcto. Aquí. Ejercitarse. Some places, this is one of those things that becomes a regional thing. Some places do use ejercitarse. Some people do, or not reflexively, right? But reflexive sometimes. Some hacer ejercicio depends on where you are. Just know if you hear it used that way, fine. Hacer ejercicio, I think almost everybody knows. Some places don't use ejercitar. They think of it as too much like English. So it kind of, it's a regional thing. Sí. Intentamos ejercitarnos. Sí. Bien. ¿Cómo se expresa con tratar de? How would we express the same idea with tratar de?
Tratamos de hacer ejercicio.
Tratamos de hacer ejercicio. Sí, bien, ok. Tratamos de. Lo importante, the important thing es tratamos de, necesitamos de siempre. We always need a de in there. Okay. Oh, tourists are trying to buy tickets for the show. And I know are trying to buy tickets. Keep away from the estar right now, for right now. Usually the most direct, which is plain old present tense, is the easiest and the best. Not to say you can't use estar with intentar or estar with tratar, you can, but then it means it's going on in real time right now while we're speaking. And if that is really the idea you want to convey, then estar and that ing construction are okay. But let's keep this all presente. The tourists.
Los turistas tratan de comprar entradas por la exhibición.
Sí, entradas para la exhibición, el show, a veces la presentación, depende. El cine, si es, sí, el cine, si son películas, sí, el cine, el programa.
Here's another weird one for that. When we were gonna talk about what's best about some place, so I had to look up, I wound up just looking up for shows as in Broadway shows.
Oh,
Espectáculo.
espectáculo, sí, sí, sí. Espectáculo. Sí, muy común, espectáculo.
I thought that was just a great word.
Sí, es muy buena palabra, espectáculo, espectáculo. It's a spectacle. Yeah, literalmente, a spectacle. Something that mesmerizes you. Un espectáculo. Un drama would be a play, like show. Yeah, show in English could be something on TV. Show in English could be something on a stage. It could be musical. It could be acting. Yeah, show is really kind of vague, isn't it? Because it could be a lot. It could be comedy. It could be a lot of things. So which word you choose kind of depends on what kind of show it is, right? Fantástico. Tratan de comprar, pero, los turistas también es correcto decir intentan comprar. Intentan comprar, perdón. Intentan comprar. Okay. Vale, bien. Es igual. Same thing. So just remember, our tratar needs a de in there, but intentar doesn't need anything between itself and that second verb. Okay. Bueno, ¿hay alguna pregunta de try? Try o no?
No,
¿Está bien claro? Is that pretty clear?
sí.
See? Okay. Bien. So here's one of the things I want to also point out. And a lot of those I phrased ideas like, we are trying to exercise. And if you're really translating word for word, you might be thinking, oh, should I be doing, we are trying. Estamos tratando de, estamos intentando hacer ejercicio. You can, but if you use that of estamos tratando, if you do use that, it better be happening right now. Yeah.
Oh, no.
There's a really specific use for that ing structure in Spanish, and that has to mean it's going on at the time we're speaking. So if that really is the thing, you really are standing in a hot sun waiting in a line and waiting for people to buy stuff, or you really are out there chugging it in the 90-degree heat running around a track, then great, go for that. But quite often in Spanish, the easiest way is to just go with the presente. Even though in English we might have a, well, I'm cooking tonight, but I'm not cooking right now, right? So, cocino esta noche, voy a cocinar esta noche, pero no estoy cocinando esta noche. I would not say I am cooking tonight, using that idea of tonight, because we're not in tonight time, right? We're in this morning time. So there's a purpose for that ing. So just, use it as needed. Okay. A ver. Bueno. Vamos a ver. We're going to see if you understood this next one. This next one I thought is a little bit trickier maybe to figure out. So think back to what you heard in the video. Ooh, this whole thing of support. Yeah. Support is a really, really tough thing. It can
Bring it
be
on.
Bring it on. Here's the one thing you generally want to avoid like the plague. It looks like a Spanish word. It is a Spanish word. It is not support. Soportar. A lot of people say that looks a lot like support. I like that word. I'm going to use it. It must mean support. Soportar means to stand, put up with, tolerate. So watch out. Soportar looks like it should be a cognate, and it is not at all. So if you want to say, I support my wife, meaning, my wife is getting knee surgery and I support her decision.
And then you'll have to support her physically.
and then you'll have to use that other verb later on. Eso es. I support my wife's desire to go back to school and get her degree. Posible. Meaning you're cheering. You're in their, you're in their cheering section. That kind of support. Yeah. Soportar does not fit with that at all, right? Soportar means to put up with. And generally, you're going to hear it used with this very, very negative no word. No soporto means I can't stand, right? Soporto a mi esposa means I put up with my wife. I just tolerate her. It does not send a positive message at all. Soporto a mi mujer. Soporto a mi esposa. I put up with my wife. I just barely manage to tolerate her existence. So you want to stay away from that. No soporto, see? No soporto a mis vecinos. I can't stand my neighbors. Literally. No soporto a mis vecinos. No soporto a mi suegra. I can't stand my mother-in-law. No soporto al novio de mi hija. I can't stand my daughter's boyfriend. No soporto al novio de mi hija. I can't stand my daughter's boyfriend. Well, okay. That all sends a very, very negative message. So when we do want to say you support with the idea of I'm in your cheering section, I stand behind you 100%. This is the golden verb you want to use.
Can I waste 15 seconds of our time? I
Sí.
can't wait to try that. No soporto los Dodgers, Dodgers de Los Angeles. When I go to a game where they're playing against the Diamondbacks.
Exacto, exacto. Cuando no eres aficionado, ¿sí? Cuando no te gusta un equipo en particular, es perfecto, es perfecto. Your arch rival, ¿sí? El peor enemigo, your worst enemy camp, yeah, sí, no soporto.
And it's because so many people drive over from Los Angeles for those games. And I've got to try that with somebody there.
Bien. Or, you can't even be just, like, you can't stand you can't stand the heat. No soporto el calor agobiante. I can't stand the suffocating heat. No soporto este calor agobiante. Perfecto. Okay. Vale. So the I can't stand verb is super useful. Yeah. But sometimes we mean this idea of support in a very positive way. So here are positive things. Apoyar is really, I would say out of all these, a really, really golden word. And this one I would say is sort of a backup, back burner. Are you going to use that sostener a lot in conversation? Probably not. Probably not. I'll show you some examples, but you're probably not going to use that. These two, you might use a fair amount, and I would say apoyar is the golden one, because generally you want to indicate that you are behind somebody or something. You're a backer. Support. You're a backer. I should say not back, but backer. Yeah. Okay. Entonces, por ejemplo, and we can translate Red Cross exactly as you would think here. I support the Red Cross.
Apoyo.
Apoyo la Cruz Roja. Es Cruz Roja. ¿Sí? Apoyo la Cruz Roja. Apoyo, doy dinero a la Cruz Roja, ayudo, ayudo cuando dono dinero, doy dinero, les doy dinero a la Cruz Roja, lo que sea, whatever it may be, ¿sí? Con donaciones, con lo que sea, ¿bien? Apoyo la Cruz Roja. Anytime you support an organization, a team, un equipo, sí, se puede decir. Y podemos hablar de personas también. Es importante cuando hablamos de personas, la a personal. Don't forget the a personal if you use it to talk about people. ¿Cómo se dice we support our kids?
Apoyamos a nosotros, niños, cuando estudian.
Sí, a nuestros niños, hijos, lo que sea. Sí, hijos. Oh, a ver, my palm is sitting on my wrist and it keeps within my screen, perdón. Apoyamos pero es importante. Apoyamos a nuestros niños, hijos, mientras estudian. O mientras están estudiando, sí, posible, posible. Están estudiando posible, posible. Bueno, vale, perfecto. Perfecto.
Carolyn,
Apoyar, sí.
question. On that first one, wouldn't it be appropriate to use mantener if you just support them by giving money? Like you would still be correct, right? Or not really?
Creo que no. I think not. And I will tell you, aquí, bueno, ¿por qué no? If you're giving money, why isn't that the same as this? Bien. This is more like you have a responsibility or a commitment to financially support somebody. Will la Cruz Roja, will Red Cross go on without your donation? Probably. Will your family get along with you super, super easy without you? That would be a stretch. That's more of a real commitment kind of thing. So mantener makes a little more sense there. Since somebody else is not necessarily going to step into that void to give financial support to your family, it's a personal commitment. Yeah. As opposed to
think of mantener as maintain.
think of it as maintain. Yeah, see, eso es. Maintaining is more like what you let's think of maintenance with your house.
Yeah.
You keep things when you maintain something, you're keeping it from falling apart. When you're maintaining your family, you're financially giving them back so that they're in shoes, clothing, school supplies, food. Yeah, it's maintenance. It's maintenance. Eso. Sí. For example, if you watch a movie and some girl is distraught because her boyfriend dumped her or whatever, okay? Bien. And she, mi familia me apoya. My family supports me, meaning my family stands behind me. And it doesn't have anything to do with money going to her, but my family emotionally is there for me. Yeah. So when somebody is emotionally there for you, they're rooting in your corner for you, that's apoyar, right? I mean, it might be kind of financial like this, but this is support. It could be support in any way, like you volunteer your time. Apoyar can also be volunteering time. It can manifest itself in many different ways. Whereas mantener, when you talk about people, really means literally maintaining, keeping them in food, clothing, shelter, all that kind of stuff. Okay. Bien. Vamos. So, como aquí, like this, the father supports his family. And the way you think of this is that he keeps them financially stable. Yeah. That's a general idea behind using mantener. Okay. You are literally maintaining something. Okay. ¿Cómo se expresa? This father, este padre. And let's think about this. Tener is going to conjugate just like this verb because it's built on this verb. El padre
Mantiene.
mantiene a su familia. A su familia. Porque familia es un grupo de personas. Cuando nos referimos a las personas, tenemos que usar la palabra a. ¿Sí? Personal. Este padre mantiene a su familia, mantiene a sus hijos, mantiene a su esposa. Es posible. Este padre mantiene a su padre anciano, his elderly dad. Mantiene a su abuelo. Financially supports his grandpa if grandpa cannot do that for himself. Así. Bien. Vale. And this mantener has to do with actual physical, physical, real hardcore financial physical support, not just emotional. We won't use mantener for emotional support. We don't use mantener for emotional support. Okay. Think maintenance on your car. Exactly right. We walk 5 miles every day to keep in shape.
5 cada día. Caminamos.
Caminamos o andamos, depende. Some countries like andamos, some like caminamos. 5 millas
Yes.
cada día
Para mantener el forma o la forma.
mantener. Y va a ser mantenernos porque hablamos de nosotros, ¿sí? Normalmente es mantenerse en forma. Aquí mantener es más como mantenerse because we keep ourselves in shape. Okay. Bien.
Yeah.
Mantenernos en forma. Mantenernos en forma. Mantener en forma es in shape. A veces I've heard some people in some places, probablemente en Mexico, I think I've heard some Mexicans at times use that word fit. Boy, that sounds very Spanglish to me, but I imagine depending on where you go, you might hear that. Oh, aquí. So I would say this one you don't have to practice a lot, but I'm just going to show you how it would be used. Sostener, like mantener, is based on tener, but it really means like physically, actually like grabbing something and holding it steady. You know, when you grab somebody's arm, their shoulder, you put your arm around their back to keep them up. Or when you physically hold something up. So the wall holds up the roof, see? The walls. Las paredes sostienen el techo.
El techo.
Okay, bien. But literally, it's holding something up. Conversationally, you're probably not going to need this a lot, but just to show you how you will hear it if you do. The rocks hold up the arch. You know, you're seeing some old piece of ruins someplace, right? Las piedras sostienen el arco. Bien. So that's just so, you know, a literal, holding it up like that. Something is actually physically holding something up in a very, very physical, immediate physical sense. So these two are ones you're going to hear a lot. Mantener means support, as in, you know, keep your kids in shoes and clothing, right? Or to keep yourself in shape. Yeah. Mantener, you might hear people using that to talk about their health. Me mantengo en buena salud. I keep myself in good health. You might hear it in that way. This one is a little bit easier to do.
Yeah.
Es más fácil. To move, as in you move the place, the actual physical residence, the address where you get all your mail. That is mudarse. Always mudarse. Always reflexive. It just is. So it's an easy decision. And that's got to be physically the place where you set up your bed, your all your furniture and all that stuff. But if you move an item, it's mover. If you move your whole body, it's reflexive, moverse, because you move yourself. Okay? A ver. Entonces, many people move to places with cooler weather.
Mucha gente se muda
Se muda, muy bien.
Lugares,
A lugares.
el tiempo más fresca.
Con tiempo más fresco, sí, uy, perdón. Con tiempo más fresco. Sí, con un clima más fresco, así. Bien. Tiempo o clima, sí, exacto. Pero se muda, se muda, se muda, se muda because you change your actual place of residence. Okay, your address. I'm moving to a smaller house.
Se mudó a una casa más pequeña.
Más pequeña. Exacto. Fantástico. Change of address, right? Mudarse, mudarse. Oh, move the luggage over there.
Is that a
Mueve
command?
el
Is that a
equipaje.
command?
Mueve, mueve el equipaje. Mueve el equipaje. Over there, por allá. Por allá. Por allí, por allá. Yeah. Yeah. Bien.
A little stem changer there.
Exacto. Aquí, sí. Mover, mover, sí, es un verbo de cambio de raíz. It is a UE, like dormir, like morir. It is an OTUE, like encontrar, ¿sí? Mueve, mueve, sí, mueve. Y no es reflexivo. When my knees hurt, it's better to move around. And here you're talking about your whole body, so it becomes a reflexive thing. Cuando
me duelen las rodillas.
me
I
duelen
know
las
that
rodillas.
one. Es mejor, es mejor.
And you don't really need the word around.
Me mueve,
Moverme.
mover.
Es mejor moverme. Es mejor moverme. It's better to move myself around. Yeah. It's better to loosen it up, is what you're really talking about, right? Cuando me duelen las rodillas, and here, this is like your knees are what's hurting, so it's not me duelo, it's me duelen las rodillas. Es mejor moverme. It's better to move around, to move about, to move my whole body is what you're saying. See? Moverme. The couples move with the music. Las parejas.
Las parejas.
Sí.
Movemos.
No es nosotros, no es de forma de nosotros. Las parejas se
Mueven.
mueven, ¿sí?
Con la música.
Con la
Oh,
música,
sí.
con la música.
Mueven.
Con la música, ¿sí? Las parejas se mueven, ¿sí?
Yeah.
Sí. A lot of times, you'll hear a boss saying to a worker or a mom saying to her kids if she's annoyed because they're not doing something she told them to do. You know, you'll hear people using this idea. Hey, move it, right? and somebody's giving a command. Muévete. Move it. Muévete.
That's a good one to know.
Muévete. Move it. Get going. Muévete. Do something, for heaven's sake. Muévete, yeah? Move it, yeah? So, You know, a lot of people like to use this when they're talking. Luis se mueve bien cuando baila. Luis moves really well when he dances, meaning he's really got the moves. He's smooth on the dance floor. Yeah, es así. Bien. Okay. A ver. I think, creo. Sí. I think we're going to leave our last two things for you to pull into next week. We're going to take a look at lanzar and tirar in a whole separate category from echar. So you're going to have uno, dos, tres. You're going to have three things we're going to work next week because we're going to move on to something just kind of easy here to finish up. But I'm going to give you as a preview, think of lanzar as this word lance. When you think of a javelin thrower, they're throwing a lance, right? And the old soldiers in the Middle Ages and in antiquity used lances in warfare, a very long spear. Lanzar kind of has that idea of, you know, sending something far, and it might be physically, literally throwing something, picking it up and heaving it. And lanzar can also be sort of in a metaphorical sense, throwing it out there, like launching a new business.
Mm.
So lanzar is a very nice specific verb. Lanzar can be like, you know, when you're talking about lanzar, you're really throwing something, you're giving it the big heave ho. Okay, it's not just me throwing something into the basket, the wastebasket next to my desk. It could be, but it probably a little more effort. Yeah. But lanzar is also used as sort of a metaphorical phrase to talk about business dealings or any kind of a big project, anything that you are initiating and you've never done before and you're getting it out there. Okay. Lanzar often has that kind of meaning. And tirar is to throw, but often it carries with it the idea of throw out or throw away when you're getting rid. It doesn't necessarily meaning getting rid of. It could just be throwing a ball, but often it can carry the idea of when you're really throwing something away, getting rid of it. Whereas lanzar will not be used really very much with getting rid of something. But they are words. If you're just talking about throwing a ball, you know, throwing a physical item to somebody, lanzar and tirar can be pretty interchangeable. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Echar can mean to physically throw something, but it has a whole bunch of uses. And I'm going to send you yet a new and different video on echar, because echar has a whole bunch of meanings. Echar goes into many really idiomatic phrases that cannot be translated exactly. Just like, you know, it doesn't make sense if you try to do word for word with tengo frío, tengo calor, tengo sueño. Yeah, it's an idiomatic phrase, kind of like tener. Echar has many, many, many uses. So you're going to take a look at these. You're going to get a new video on echar because it might have many different meanings. And then we'll take a look at discutir, discutir y platicar. Sí, these two. So you're going to have three little sets to work off of. ¿Está bien?
Sí.
And I want to show you something interesting. We're going to have to come back to our little video. I'm going to ask first before I get into this. Is there any, did anybody have any real big difficulty with understanding this video about comparing the two cities? We didn't really get time to get into that much, but was there any like real difficulty with that video? Was it pretty easy to understand?
You
Talk
know,
too
I
fast.
would say it was fun. The ladies who were doing the interviewing, they spoke at a more reasonable pace, but so many of
Yes.
the interviewees, I just could not keep up with them at all.
The interviewees don't know they're speaking to beginning students. They have no concept. So they're just talking like we are talking right now. The pace those people are talking on the street are exactly like how I'm speaking to you in English now, which to somebody learning English would sound like this is ridiculously fast. But yeah, they're not thinking of slowing down for you. No offense, but they, yeah. The people doing the interviews think very, very carefully about that. But we'll come back to this next week. Oh, I do want to show you one item, and this came up kind of early in the week. And it's kind of beneficial in that it makes you think. It was an article, I think, New York Times, The Craft of Translation. And the whole article was really talking about well, what I took away from it, and you see what they're doing, the art, the craft, which it really is, the work of translation. There's been a lot of debate now with AI that all translators will be put out of work. However, people who really understand on a deep level translation realize that that's probably not a great idea. And we often talk about not translating word for word, that quite often you need to search for the right combination of words, and it won't be a word for word from English to Spanish or whatever language you're doing. And this shows a really great example. She takes something, and this lady is translating from Spanish into English. So here's something from, it's I don't know what it is. It's a literary thing, some piece of literature. La verdad es que él no vio nada. Por su madre, que en paz descanse, por lo más sagrado, que él no vio nada. Wow. The truth, if I went word for word, the truth is that he did not see anything. On his mother, may she rest in peace. By all that is sacred, he did not see anything. But it's a great example of how we get to something, but we can't do it word for word because there's a feeling behind those words. Okay. Oh, and I forgot. Se me olvidó. I forgot. Es de una novela, Hurricane Season, a murder mystery wrapped around the critique of the state corruption. The plot unfolds as a continuous restating of the facts of those involved in the crime. It's a story told in a village, in village hearsay, and it hangs on the author's ability to create distinct and credible voices. Oh, there is a translation for her characters. A successful translation has to carry those voices over to English. So translations will carry over a feeling as well as the idea of the words, just the words. And here are the first lines of a chapter that follows a character named Mundra, a sort of lovable, though highly unreliable fool. Mundra isn't speaking here, but the narrator's channeling him. And here is a translation. Here's how Google translates it into English. I'm often asked if machine translation services or AI will put human translators out of a job. It doesn't keep me up at night. Wow, she's confident. So how would I turn this into human translation? Start with the first part. The truth is that he did not see anything. And this is very clever. I definitely get rid of this ploddingly literal repetition. It sounds great in Spanish. It does not sound so great in English. Nobody would say that in English. Okay. But some kind of repetition is crucial. It's how the third person narrator gives us the feeling that we're inside Munra's head. Without it, the translation is faithful to the meaning of the Spanish clause, but it feels stale, spiritless, not faithful to the voice. Munra in this moment is insistent. That opening, la verdad, la verdad, la verdad, seeks to persuade. Oh, in English, if we said the truth, the absolute truth,
Mhm.
that starts to drive down deeper.
Yeah.
And maybe one repetition plus an emphatic adjective will get that across. Okay. And a contraction should make this feel a bit more conversational. Okay. Now, just about passes for something someone might say. The truth, the absolute truth, is that he didn't see anything. But not this character. Oh, got rid of all of it. So you're not going to see a word-for-word translation. The next try is something of a joke. But it shows you where my mind goes. Sometimes translation is almost like a session of pre-association. The truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Wow, that sounds pretty. That puts a period to it, doesn't it? Is that he didn't see anything. Oh, he's providing a witness statement. Oh, and nothing but the truth sounds very legalese, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yes, it does. Even so, my nod to the court of law reveals this information too quickly and inelegantly in a way that the original does not. It's a reckless translation. Back to the drawing board. So this shows you what translators go through. I could swap an adverb, or could I swap an adverb? Honestly?
No.
We're starting to hear a voice. So really the translator tries to get a feeling for what's going on with the story, not just every single word. Okay. We're going to see where one last try. Honest to God, he didn't see a thing. That sounds very conversational. There's a phrase. Yeah, and nobody would say honest to God in Spanish, but that repetition of la verdad, la verdad, la verdad. English might use that. Honest to God, he didn't see a thing on his mother's soul. May she rest in peace. He didn't see a thing. Yeah. Por lo más sagrado means the most sacred thing of all, which of course is your mother's grave. Yes. And what's the most sacred thing if not God? So, this shows an interesting way of how we got to that English, how really what you want to do is we use these words to convey a feeling. And in literature, it gets even harder because not only are you conveying a meaning, but you're conveying things about characters and events and the setting, the context. So I thought that was a really interesting. I'm going to send you guys the article because she shows some other things they didn't translate. I'm hoping it will not be behind a paywall. I'm not sure. It's New York Times. It might be behind it. Try it. I will try it. Hopefully it will not be behind a paywall. I think if you just go on Google and type in New York Times, what did I use as a New York Times translate AI? I think that's what I plugged into Google, and I think that brought it up in case there's a paywall here. I think that will get you to the article, but it shows you how, that word for word thing just does not give you a feeling, does it? So, okay, we're going to give you the tail end of these extra words. We're going to give you a new video on just echar because it really deserves something on its own. Echar is a very super useful, super common verb. And we'll come back and maybe talk about some of these cities. The whole thing of comparing cities, where you would live, where you wouldn't live. I'll put that back in the email. I do want to take some time at the beginning of class next week to talk about that. Espero que eso es todo. I think that's it for today. Sí, está bien.
Gracias.
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 Excelente, excelente, excelente. Bueno, entonces nos vemos más tarde. Espero que ustedes tengan buena semana, una semana fantástica. A pesar del calor, in spite of the heat, al pesar del calor, in spite of the heat.
Gracias.
Sí, bien. Entonces nos vemos, sí, más tarde. Cuídense mucho, por
Gracias.
favor.